SPBHI is part of MBH in a same. So this is how it looks like, and you can have up to 500 MGBRI in the same system. That means 2,000 channel. This is a kind of European standard for configuration that they want to replace the COT. And this is how to configure it. There is also a basic function that you can use it with all media converter called init-config. Initialize your configuration. Init-config. Here's the root setup. I will skip it. I will skip it. This is also the basic rate, and this is the port used. MG primary. MG primary card gateway, which allow TDM and IP devices to be connected to ISDN primary rate access network, which is really 30B plus 2D. It's not 93, it's 95, it's 2D. The structure of ISDN is based on time slot.
Yes.
And we have 31 time slot, starting from TS0 till 31. TS16 is your C channel, and TS0 is backup time slot for D channel. In the small business system or medium range system, like 93, they consider that one ISDN channel is enough. 95 you have to define for each system 30 channel plus 2D. One is the backup and one is the main.
0 and 16, right?
Yes. Yes, and time slot, yes, but trunks,
Yeah.
it will be from trunk number 1 to trunk number 32.
Yeah.
So trunk number 1 is the first lane or time slot, and trunk number 16 will be also the secondary. Because 95 is converting based on the lane, this relation between two lanes. You will see it in a hardware car. MGBRI consume a complete highway. One salam. Salam wa rahmatullah. It's consume a complete highway. That means again 32 channels, not 30B plus D. It will consume 30B plus 2D. 2D. For the people who have an organ background or mitral background, they just say, it's the channel in the middle. No. Because in most of the ISDN application, where you have a multiple ISDN, you really need a channel for control and a backup channel for control as well. One channel is not enough to handle the traffic for PCI as well. Yeah.
So this is the reason why we use the channel 0 for ISMC.
Yes, exactly. Because the 95 car that we use is really looking for the first lane. And there is a connection relation between, let's assume that you are using module group 00, and you are talking about line group 0, and you are using it in line group 12, 0. So you will have 0, 0, 0, 12, 0, and 0, 0, 0, 14, 0. 12, 0 and 14, 0 will combine the channels together and will act the 12, 0, 0, which is my lower lane, will communicate with the ISDN. Let's assume that we have two ISDN or shared route. I have two connections from Etisalat and they have 60 channel which share the same DID number. That's why we enable 115 as a common channel. That means depend on my first D channel, and it will make a correlation between 4 D channel to control the complete ISDN signaling for 60 channels. But again, the simple rule, each MGBRI will consume 32 channel, 32 lane. What if I have the ISDN from Etisalat which have only 10 channels? It's okay, you can use it from Etisalat, what Etisalat allow you to use, but you have to book the 32 channel.
Of course. Our side hardware is
It's standard, no?
Yeah, you have to book it. You have to book it. You can go up to 32 MGBRI proprietary or 125 in SIDMU. I prefer in MGBRI, if one day you buy it, only buy it with, do it with SIDMU. Not because of the number of MGBRI. You can imagine, 125 multiplied by 30. How many channels you have? It's too much. But there is a nice feature here called call retention. Call retention. We'll talk about it later. The system can have up to 640 channels simultaneously. That means concurrent. It's not a blocking level, but this is a control. That means you have 64 core in the same microsecond, which is very, very high number. Most of the ISDN based system, they don't handle more than 200 core concurrent. And
this limit is for initiating the call.
yes, yes. It's even, to be very specific, to set up the acknowledge setup. To reply in the acknowledge setup. It's a microsecond.
64 microseconds
Yeah.
per channel, right?
64 in the same channel, in the same microsecond, you can handle 640, which is a very big number, very, very big number. In Siemens, they don't have more than 300 bytes, which is the most oriented system for ICM.
Khalid, 460 or 640?
460.
Okay.
Okay, and MGBRI require internal BHI for proprietary and BHE with MBH for SIP. We prefer to use SIP mode for MGBRI. This is how the MGBRI work, and this is the 95 connected, and BHE contacting MBH. That means if I have a dual CPU, I have two MBH, and they have to register inside the MGBRI to SIP cell. To do this, I have to assign two MBH. I have to go for a command called ALIDL, which is the protocol under assignment. This is how it looks like. I would like to show on real. I will give you so you can share it with each other. And you will have multiple names. Sometimes you will find it MGBRI, and sometimes you say find it 2M. It's the same device. And you can see here ISDN line connectivity and Ethernet line connectivity and the console connectivity as well as the external music and hold supply. Because MGBRI itself has its own music and hold source. It's not really depending on the 95 because it's a media converter. If it's a BRTC card, it's okay. BRTC card will depend?
Sorry. What do you mean that 2 mega?
2 mega line, yes.
2 megalines.
If you are talking about BRTC card is taken from the BIR, the same music. But once it's a media converter, each and every NEC media converter has its own local supply music and hold.
So you don't need VS32.
If yes or no, yes and no. You don't need the music and hold, you don't need VS32 if you want to depend on the music and hold from here. But in pure IB configuration, where you don't have a BIR, you will use VS32 for a different purpose. Like, you would like to have three-way calling, you must have VS32.
Conference.
Also, some people don't like this music inject, they want to upload a WAV file to their VS32.
We can use the music and hold here also for the stations.
Music and hold is only here
Or
for
the-
the station who call this media converter.
Yes.
That means, if the media converter involved, the
You can
music
get-
and hold here apply.
But you can't upload a WAV file here.
No.
Okay.
That way, we have a conference server called VS32.
Okay.
To configure MGBRI, you have to go for user console, set SB, assign your details. Also, you can initialize this configuration via init command. Here is a little bit different than the COT because we have to assign our ISDN parameters. First of all, we have to go for set BRI command 2, and we are not using a Japanese ISDN. By the way, Japanese is using T1, not E1 like us.
Oh,
Yeah.
like America.
Yes, yes. This item you have to keep yourself all the time in a user side, not a network side, and it's mainly used, not used for normal ISDN to connect with the carrier. It's really used for QC networking. Because in all of the scenario, once we are connected to the carrier, we are on the slave side. We are really depending on a clock and characteristics that the carrier supply for us.
Okay.
That means we are user side, right?
Yes, all the time we are user side. This device can act like a network side. 95 can act like carrier,
Carrier.
but not all the time. For BRTC card, for MGBRI, yes, we are supporting this. With MGBRI only. For BRTC card and UG50, we don't support network mode. For ISDN code. For QSOC, it's okay, but for ISDN. Also important question all the time, do I have a cyclic check or not? This is the most important parameter that the carrier, Yusuf,
مين صاحب الفكرة تبعت الفيديو؟
Abdullah.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I didn't read the.
يلا نراكم.
إن شاء الله.
هذا اللي عمل لنا الاوفر تبع القاعة، وين مكتبه؟
أبو ملتحد.
وين؟
معك رقمه؟
اتوقع انه موجود عندي بالايميل.
أجازي لك إياه؟
يلا ابعته خليني اسلم عليه بس.
بس دقيقتين عن النقاش.
يلا نراكم ها.
يا ساتر دير بالك. Sorry for the interruption.
So we don't need to change any parameter
I have my
Yeah, I have.
or network side.
Next. Yeah, next. Because network side was really, you have to change it if you have a DTI. This is the first step. The second step, in the old days, in the IMX days, we have a local processor for 2 carrier, which is today we need an MG. And in each MG, we have a local time switch. And each time switch, you have to decide to use network mode or not. Because if you select this MG, you have to decide all the ISDN card in this MG, is it network mode or user mode? If you want to have in the same system 2 kind of smooths, one is user mode and network mode, you have to separate in different MG with 2 different type of processors. And also, you have to assign an ARTDM network side or user side. And it will not really affect because NEC, since we released 85, we are really dependent on the local configuration of the device itself. It's a layer 1 configuration, so no need to add it to the system data program. We are not relying in ourselves, except in a new BRTA card, it's a card configuration, or we can say software switch configuration. And in the UG50 and also in the MGBRI, it's a software switch configuration, so no need to keep anything inside the system. We can spare this memory for something better. But still, the whole question all the time, T1 or E1, I'm a network or user, I'm using CRCS. This is the most top 3 question that you have to ask the carrier for.
CRC again.
CRC cyclic check. Are you using a CRC in time switch 16 every 3 seconds to receive a correlator saying that you are online? Are you aligned or not? Do I need to check my clock? Do you need to check your clock?
Is it like keep alive?
Yes, sync
Okay,
with
It's
the-
cyclic check is much more deeper than keep alive. Keep alive is something like this,
sending only.
Okay.
but CRC is really a kind of handshake.
Okay.
Time to
Really
time.
handshake, yes,
Time
yes.
to time.
It's a cyclic check, and it's also can be done over multiple correlator driven. I can say it. This is my setup message. You say, okay, it's acceptable that you have a setup message. Tell me about your concurrent active core. You say, no, I will not tell you about my active core. Please tell me my circuit ID in your public switch. Many implementation. Normally the carrier prefer to use it if they are using, if they are connected an ISDN line far away from the substation or from the main switch. But in the local area we are connected directly to the switch, it's easy. Nowadays, most of the ISDN lines are provided via MPLS links. So most of the carriers stop to use CRC. But let's assume that you want to connect to a Avaya system. The Avaya system is very limited with ISDN. Even MITRE is very limited with ISDN. And they have some time a behavior, they could not change these parameters. So you have to fit with it.
We have to adapt.
Exactly. We are capable. We are sure
Flexible.
about, we are sure about our capability in ISDN. But we don't know about the others. If it's Siemens, I'm sure also Siemens is okay. But about the other vendors, I have a lot of them. Because I did a lot of integration with many vendors. And the way that they talk, they are very confident. But the reality, they cannot do anything. The reality. You can imagine, I know, you know Alcatel, right?
Yes.
What Alcatel can do in this subject.
Yeah, CRC and everything we can change.
But you cannot go deeper like we go in ARTDN.
Yeah, but not sure.
You cannot.
Correct.
I have to adapt myself for what Alcatel can do. But they cannot adapt what I can do.
So let's say,
Numbering plan also more flexible than this.
so let's say if there's an existing system of Alcatel, NEC can
Anymore.
but vice versa regarding to the CRC.
Yeah, not only CRC. I'm talking about the concept of ISDN parameter that NEC can provide. If you want to migrate Alcatel, it's very easy. It's very easy. Now, if you want to migrate Alcatel system, you need a standalone expert in SV95. You cannot go with empty hands. Because I know that the education system of Alcatel is very good. They really educate their engineer. And they force the company to buy training. Buy training. It's like something that they have to sell. It's part of their quota that every quarter that you have to sell a training.
True.
It's kind of their service agreement. I want to cry. That's the problem of our people. Also, from here you can set your music in home. You are really depending on the internal or external. If you are really depending on the internal, is it minutes or this is a kind of internal music in home? All of them, you know, in Jordan there is it was a polite way that the municipality decided we have a gas, you know, gasoline, and they just pass it through the streets and beep, 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 beep. So they woke up all the streets just to tell them that the gas guy is passing the street. Then they decided to use the minutes one that we use it here.
This is the for release.
Yeah, for release.
Yes. When I was playing piano for someone, and I was playing this piece, so they say, "Oh, this is for the gas guy."
Excuse me, can I have a wall here? I want to write down something.
Sure.
Thank you. Also important to common parameter if it's a user side and primary side. This is the parameter that you really touch if you are connected to carrier. You always in the user. You don't need, as I told, to set up in the ARTDN, but you can set up from here. Let's say, via they cannot adapt themselves. Let's say they have flexibility to say, I can act like a user mode, or I can act like a network mode, but they cannot mix both modes in one system. So if they are acting like a user mode, you have to adapt yourself as a network. Here is possible, and you can do it by root. It's not a system-wide configuration. Also, you have to set the one-time password, then save config and reboot. You remember in the basic course we talk about 8LC. 8LC we just set SB, one-time password, save config. COT, the same. Also, basic rate is the same, but here we have to bypass this page of additional settings. What I noticed that most of the people, by mistake, once they go for set PRI command line, they do 0101 by mistake. So I keep this reference as a default setting. So you will do a typing mistake, but at least you have a reference what was the original value. And here, the original value. Here, the original value. So keep it in your mind. After that, you have to go for ARTDN in the programming and select the template for GPRI, basic rate, primary rate for P and D. And then you have to adapt all of these values. What this value mean? I have to enable echo cancellor because I'm connected over a VoIP network. I don't guarantee my VoIP equality unless I enable my echo cancellor for my speech path. And since it's ISDN, that means I'm doing digital to IP conversion. I'm not doing analog. I'm doing digital to IP conversion. So I have to be very careful about the echo cancellor. Even if you see, yeah, I don't feel any difference, keep it. Also, you have to enable your ISDN because by default, the template is T1. The template is T1, you have just to enable to E1. Then you have to decide your specification. Normally we use ITSI ISDN. ITSI ISDN. In index 66, you decide how many digits you want to translate. Some carriers, they say, sorry, we don't have a translation. We give you have to fix your internal numbering plan. You have to fix your internal numbering plan based on our ranges. So they don't have a translation. Some carriers, yeah, use whatever you like, and you have to do translation from the last 4 digits. Some carriers said, we don't have addressing, but you can do variable addressing. Like, in some number do 4 digits, and some number do 3 digits, based on the rate that I will give to you. It's also a common case. And 115, it's an interesting index. You have to be careful once you use it. It's working with most of the ISDN carrier, and this is mainly used in order to not to assign ADBC, ACSC, ACIC1. If you enable this CDN, that means no need to assign all of this. But if you say I don't trust this item and I want to do this, do it. What this item do? This item is common root. That means I have one ISDN and one ISDN, and both of them from the same carrier for the same range, and they have the same signaling. And this time slot from 1 to 30, and this time slot from 30 to 33 to 60. I can make two roots as a common root. So no need to expand myself. So the type of understanding that 95 do, if you enable this, yeah, I don't need to bother about your control channel. I know where is your control channel. It's the first one. Don't need to assign it again. I don't want to have a point code for your ISDN. Sometime, for some carrier, especially the deep overlap using carriers, this item is not really working. Because in overlap sending, you have to be very specific, who are you? So in most of the installation, I use this one. It's very easy. You don't need to add additional 3 commands and make an list for it. But some carrier, if you are connected to UG50, be careful. Clear? Then you have to go for ARTIN and decide you are ITSI ISDN and you are connected to a media converter. If you remember, I say ARTIN related for application of the route, which is here. I'm using ITSI and I'm connected to a media converter. The same configuration is identical what you need to do in UG50. Nothing more, nothing less. Don't forget to map your route. Also, have MGBRI, how to assign. Normally use these highways. Use Dinal example. Use this highways. Use this highways. You can block 2 slots for 32, but it's not recommended. We keep this slot ready.
One. One enough.
Yeah. Then you have to go for command AMGIL and assign ISDN trunk as MGBRI in SIP mode. In SIP mode. Then you have to select your first limb and assign a second. Do your numbering plan. Do your restriction. That do your numbering plan and do your section common for each and every route. You decide how to do it. But the basic thing, again, ARTDN with these indexes, ARTIN with these indexes, AMGIL, and the second. Some people said, is it really necessary to do all of this here? Yes, it's necessary. Because this is, you are specifying your route parameter. How to check if my MGBRI is working fine? Go for CSVT command and see SCVT command. If your channel is busy, make busy. Maybe you can see that I'm connected to Etisalat, but immediately after I connect to Etisalat, the channel has become busy immediately. After I remove the line, the channel release. After I connect the line again, it's busy again. That means I have definitely protocol mismatch. I don't understand what they are talking about. Right?
Can we, like what we have before, make loop and
Yes, sir. Definitely.
test it?
Everything
It is the
Even
command.
you can-
This is how the provider is understand. Always he said he didn't have any problem. Okay, when you have make the loop and you tested that everything is up channel, the channel, okay, then you can prove for them that you don't have problem.
This is the same legacy way. In the finding problem there, I will discuss deep in details. How to convince the carrier that this is simply their problem. Okay, I was talking about multiple MGBRI can share the same root. The only thing that you have to consider is to enable 115 CDN, which is rated for common root. But in your assignment, you have to be careful about series of BRI0, BRI1, and you have to continue in sequence. And again, you have to assign 2 MGIL, not 1 AMGIL, because we are talking about 2 BRI, 2 MGBRI, 2 devices together in a single root. Don't forget 115, don't forget 115, and don't forget to assign all the trunks and all the D channels. In MGL you have to do it twice because each device have its own MAC address. That's the reason why. In SIP mode, you only need these ports. This is mainly for registration with SV95, and this is for the RTB traffic peer-to-peer. To enable SIP mode, you have to make sure that your SIP implementation is working fine. Here is the socket connector, or sorry, the RJ45 connector, which is the standard pin connector for ISDN. Then the subject is not really something that you have to really worry about. But if you have a lot of virtual extension assignment, you have just to keep in mind. It's called virtual register, which mainly used for ISDN and GBRI, which is utilize a kind of virtual sender and receiver. You remember that 8 RSTA function?
Yes.
8 RSTA function is to receive and send the digits.
Yes.
There is a kind of virtual register, which really utilizing the lens. Look here, 0332400, 0333117, which is really virtual slot, what we don't really use, right? But it's utilized by some way, to use in your system as a virtual register. Normally we say you don't use
خالد اشيل هذا الكيبل على السويتش لحظة.
انت راح ترجع تشوف بس عادي. QSIG and basically don't use it, but MGSIP and CCIS really use it. You don't need to assign anything. It's there in the system, but it's utilizing virtually this location. And we normally say you really need to
Thank you.
keep this modular group empty. Don't program anything there. Just as a hint, this is the ISDN setup message. I have a BBX B or A. I will consider myself in this side. I send from my side to the BBXA outgoing call, and he reply, you can proceed the call, and he reply, it's alerting that he sent ring back to, and he reply again with a connect signal, that means that my ring is disconnected. Then I reply again that I acknowledge the connection, then we have a RTB traffic. Looks like the structure of SIP. The truth behind that SIP is split up in this structure. They just copy the RFC of ITSI. Then they develop the SIP.
Okay.
So if you can understand the ISDN very good, it will be easier for you to set up the SIP. Also, some cases, you may have a SIP device or SIP network and the ISDN network. You should understand how to handshake. For example, setup message is more equivalent to invite messages. And also, trying and ringing is part of the call process, and the 200 OK is equivalent to the alert. It's identical kind of message. Also, there's the important part here. Buy and 200 OK messages, which the buy and disconnect alert, is fair enough for SIP. But for this ISDN, you have really to handshake the data channels to be disconnected. You have to disconnect and reply with the release, and you can reply with the release complete message. There is some parameter that you can, maybe you need to set up in your system. Like, yeah, what about my real tone? I can make it start immediately, or do I need to postpone it for a moment? It's depend. You can modify this dial tone timer when to start from index 128. Interdigit timer, also you can modify it differently. Some carrier are really sensitive regarding this data. We just make this as a summary to make it for your reference. Maybe you will never use it. Maybe you will never use it, but at least you know how to modify this. Alternative response timer, by default,